Good evening, Internet. My name's Michael and I'm here to review some stuff for you. Tonight we continue our look through, continue celebrating Black History Month with the sequel to Blacula in Scream Blacula Scream. Now if you've never seen this before, let me read the back so you can get a general idea. Blacula is back with a vengeance. When a man tries to exact revenge on cultists who have corrupted his sister Lisa, he unwittingly resurrects Blacula and becomes his first victim. As the body count escalates, Lisa struggles to give the undead monster the final deep six before he and his recruits catch all of humanity in their fangs. That's a horrible description of this movie. That's absolutely nothing what this movie's like at all. The movie starts off with there's an old lady who's dying, and she's the leader of a voodoo cult. And she dies, and she never named a successor, and her son wants to be the successor. He wants to be the new leader of the cult. However, nobody in the cult really likes him. They're saying they're going to vote someone else, which is Lisa, who is, I guess, kind of his adopted sister. The old lady had brought her up into the cult when she was like selling tricks on the street, I guess. But anyway, she's a nice person, played by Pam Grier, and she's apparently very powerful in voodoo. But anyway, they throw him out, and he decides he's going to get revenge. And to get revenge, he goes to this old homeless guy, who I guess used to be a voodoo priest as well, who got thrown out. And he hands him the bones of Blacula. Doesn't tell him it's Blacula, he just hands him some bones and says, "This will give you the power to get revenge." So then the guy goes and does a voodoo ceremony, which brings Blacula back to life. The ceremony was pretty cool looking. Anyway, he doesn't think it works and he leaves the room, and of course Blacula rises from the grave and immediately eats the guy. Which, since this goes by the, if you're bitten by if a vampire drinks your blood, you become a vampire, that dude immediately becomes a vampire in the next scene. And then that's where a lot of the humor starts in this movie. It's a lot more humorous than the last one. The guy's like dressing up, ready to go for a party, and then he steps in front of a mirror, and then he realizes he can't see his own reflection. And him and Blacula have a rather humorous conversation where he's complaining about how life isn't worthwhile since he can't see himself anymore. And Blacula puts the foot down and teaches him who's boss, and the guy can't go to the party anyway. But anyway, some more stuff happens. Blacula goes to the party, he meets the voodoo priestess, and he hatches a plan. And that plan is he wants her to exorcise the demon in him so he can become human again. But a lot more stuff happens along the way. Blacula in this one, he kills a lot more people. And they actually show him killing a lot more people. And of course they all come back from the dead. And they all become vampires as well. There is a police detective again who's investigating it. However, this time the black guy is he's a retired detective, and he's trying to convince like this police lieutenant that it's the work of vampires. The lieutenant thinks it's the work of the voodoo cultists, but eventually they figure out, it's vampires. And Blacula and the former detective, they even have one of the little conversations where, like in the first one, where the guy was conversating with Blacula, making snide casual remarks about vampires, and they had a little tete-a-tete, kind of like in the original Dracula. However, in this one, the guy just fails miserably, and Blacula just totally shows him up. Anyway, at the same time that Blacula is trying to, get all this stuff set up so he can become human again, all his minions, and they are definitely his minions in this one, it actually shows him giving them orders, and they have to obey and stuff. They're living in this mansion that he lives in. And Willis, that's the guy who originally resurrected Blacula, he's, he turns his girlfriend into a vampire, and he's kind of getting all uppity like he's in charge and stuff until, Blacula puts him in his place. And that was pretty funny. Anyway, it all ends up with one big showdown with, again, the cops are going after the vampires. This time they don't really realize it's vampires to begin with, but they find some stakes, and so they attack the vampires with stakes inside the mansion. And a noticeable kind of difference in this one is that the vampires that isn't Blacula, they act more like zombies than vampires. They move very slowly and stiffly, and it's kind of weird. But the fight scene with them hunting down the cops and the cops hunting down them is pretty good. And we get the exorcism scene where Lisa's exercising Blacula, and he says it's working and stuff. But then the love interest, ex-detective, interrupts it, and Blacula throws him around a bit, and Lisa says that they can do it again if he doesn't hurt him. So Blacula's starting to take her out of the mansion, and at this point all the other vampires are dead. And this is the finale of the movie. They're trying to get out of the mansion when the cops keep interrupting him, and he just basically goes full on vampire mode, and he just starts killing all the cops, and she's screaming at him to stop, and eventually she becomes really frightened of him, and he's trying to tell her that she doesn't have to fear him, but she's too scared. And then the hero tries to kill him again, but he stops him, and he calls him by his name, Mamuwaldi. And this is the pivotal moment in the movie where Blacula goes full on evil, and he says, "My name is Blacula. You will call me Blacula." And yeah, he full on becomes a vampire villain like Dracula was. And then he's attacking the guy, and he's going to turn him into a vampire to make him feel the pain that he feels, when the girl, who has a voodoo doll of him, starts stabbing the voodoo doll with this arrow that she had found. And the end of the movie is him just screaming in pain as she repeatedly stabs at the voodoo doll, and it ends with him just screaming while looking at the ceiling, and then it freezes. Hence the name of the movie, Scream Blacula Scream. So all in all, this was actually a pretty good movie. I do give it a 5, and I highly recommend you watch it. Of the two, it's a lot different tone than the first one, but still pretty good in its own right. There's a lot of good scenes in this one that are more funny and campy, and just his interaction with more modern day people of the 70s. There's a point where he runs into a couple of pimps that was really funny. His interactions with Willis, the first vampire he makes, are pretty funny. All in all, an excellent movie. Anyway, again, give it a 5. Highly recommend you watch it. And stay tuned next time when we will review something else.